Thank you again for joining me on the Sutherland Report. I'm absolutely delighted that you are taking the time to join me in this political series that I am undertaking. And I now have the privilege to introduce another PPC, prospective parliamentary candidate, Reform UK, for an area that I know well, which is, of course, London, but a specific constituency, which is for Bethnal Green and Stepney. And Peter Sceat is standing there, and I'm just going to bring on Peter, and we are going to have a wonderful discussion. So thank you. Peter, an absolute delight to meet you. It's also a delight to meet a fellow Londoner. So thank you, sir, for that connection. So if we, I'll just put a few maps up, and we can remind everyone where you're standing. I've been using this map of the UK, so we can just go immediately. We've mentioned it. There's London, the red dot at the bottom there, sir. So I'll bring up this map, and there we are. So here is our map of London. The red talks about Bethnal Green and Stepney, and here you are, sir.
Excellent.
Peter, you are local. You were born in Stepney, in Bethnal Green and Stepney. What's your connection, the family connection with the area?
Okay, so first up, I wasn't born. I'm the first generation that wasn't born there.
I do apologise. I do apologise.
No, it's all right. No, it's all right. So my granddad. Start my granddad. Granddad was born, I think, in 1898 in Daniel Street, which is just next or just off of Turin Street. It's not actually there now, but brought up in Wilmot Street. And my dad was brought up in Stepney, married a girl from Hackney, far away Hackney. And that's basically where the family's from. I did my ancestry during lockdown 2, and if you think that the UK was quiet during that period, you should have tried being in Switzerland. It was absolutely a dead zone, so I was going crazy out there. I lived out there for 4 years. I did my ancestry, and because I had the time, I just plotted where everyone lived. So I've got this like fantastic resource of kind of what happened to the Sceatses. So we are, so I'm like 97% Irish DNA. So we came over probably as refugees, clinging onto a boat. Catholics, and I think wound up in Gloucestershire. Spent most of the time, I guess, in the run up to about 1790, and then a large portion of the family came down to Bethnal Green, and some of us are still there, but my link with the area also comes through the Stairway to Heaven charity. So my cousin, once removed, Lillian Sceat, died in the Bethnal Green tube disaster, and my dad knew her, not well, but knew her, and I got involved with the charity. I wound up writing the charity song for them. And working as part of that project. So, aside from that, my other big link with Bethnal Green is as a young man, full of the wrong type of alcohol, drinking in Tipples, which is now the Salmon and Bull. So that's my link with Bethnal Green. When the Reform Party asked me to stand. They said we want to match you with a constituency where you've got, you know, family roots. And I said, well, for me, that's really Camberwell, because we had a branch of the family there that did the that started the family gin company, and Bethnal Green, you know, which is kind of my branch, and Brentwood, where I live now. But I said to the Reform guys, I don't want to stand in Brentwood, because I think if the Conservatives put up a goat in this constituency, it would somehow get elected. So I said, give me something tough, you know, give me Bethnal Green. So anyway, and I was expecting to be doing all my preparation over the course of the summer, and I was expecting a nice run up to an election in November. But of course, our diminutive Prime Minister knew he had to go. He was going to get spanked properly if he left it that long. So he called a quick one, but he's going to get spanked properly anyway. Cheers.
Cheers to you, Peter. I think your comment about a goat in Brentwood is rather amusing, because I think they might get more sense out of the goat. But we'll leave that aside right now. But Peter, as you're in Bethnal Green and Stepney, what are the constituents bringing to you? What are the concerns that they have? I mean, I'm fully aware of the history of the area and how much that area has changed, say, over the last 50 years. But what are the concerns that the constituents are bringing to you?
The one really big takeaway from my first tours around the area, campaigning, I think even prior to that, you know, getting my nomination form signed, the thing that blew me away was how much everybody I spoke to despises the Tories and what they've done. I mean, I'm, you know, an angry old man about that kind of thing, you know, and what they've done. But when you hear it unprompted from person after person, doorstep after doorstep, it really takes you aback. They could not have got it more wrong over the last few years, and the level of you know, I'll say hate for them. You know, it's a powerful word, but it is hate, and that's the thing that spilled out to me most when going up and down Bethnal Green Road.
Is there any specific things? I mean, are you finding, is it, and I'm having this discussion with a number of people, so to help out, are people able to get an appointment with their GP? Are they concerned about the hospital infrastructure, access to that? Of course, one of the big things, and you can address this, you know, how is the whole ULEZ rollout affecting London as a whole, that part of London, etc.? What is there any specifics? Do they feel that they can't there's not enough school places for their children and all the rest? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm just saying, what any specifics that they are actually raising?
Yes, only it's not any of those that you mentioned. My constituency has a very high population of people from Bangladesh, and the sitting MP there before Parliament was dissolved is a lady called Ms. Ali. And when you speak to any of the Bangladeshis, many of whom aren't actually Bangladeshis, they're like Brits, but the thing that they all said to me is their driving, overwhelming thing that they want to talk about is Israel and Gaza, right? And they want to speak about that before they speak about the other stuff, right? Because that stuff really, really important to them. Now, it's a fizzing hot subject in the constituency because when the Labour Party went silent, I think Keir Starmer put a gag on all of his MPs to kind of talk about that subject in any way. While that was happening, lots of the Muslim community in Bethnal Green were saying to the Mazali, you need to voice our concerns. And for a period, she didn't do it. She stayed silent. Now, she stayed silent because she's a politician, right? She hasn't, she's not one of those people that's had a proper job. She went to Oxford University. She'd never had a proper job in the economy. So the Labour Party's her career. And I guess if Keir Starmer says, don't say anything, she won't. She went silent, and that made I'm guessing half the Muslim constituents in Bethnal Green very, very angry with her. There was a demonstration in Bethnal Green where they marched to her offices. You might not have seen any of that on the news, and that's the first and foremost thing that comes up with the kind of English or other Commonwealth people that I've spoken to up to now. You won't necessarily get people saying those things that you said, that it takes 3 weeks to get a doctor's appointment, and all those other things that that all of us know. The overwhelming thing, the kind of catch-all that they say, is we are generally sick of the Tories and we want our country back. This doesn't feel like our country, and we don't feel like we've got a sense of direction. So to recap, I think one side of the constituencies very preoccupied with Gaza, and why Mazali couldn't have said what any right-minded human being would say: call for a ceasefire, give back the hostages, lay down arms. Anybody could say that, but she couldn't even say that. So, you got one half of the constituency focused on that, and the other half just generally angry, I would say, because it's not just that you can't get seen in A&E. It's not just that you never see a policeman walking up and down. It's not just that there's no such thing as an NHS dentist anymore. It's not just that it's 2 or 3 weeks to get an appointment. Like, nothing's working properly. Nothing's working how people kind of hope that it should. And I get that. So, that's my feedback from Bethnal Green Road.
No, and how is the campaign going then, Peter? Are you doing hustings? Is there media coverage for you in the local paper, etc.? How is it going? Is there a lot of work that you're doing at the weekends, and etc. in regard to knocking on doors? And do you have help in doing that? Are there people helping you to do that?
I'll answer the second bit of your question first. No. and that's no criticism whatsoever of the party, because we're a new party. This election was called to try to catch us off guard, and I believe also try to catch Cal Vorderman's good law project off guard too, because they've been feeding some horrific things about what the Tories did during COVID with the VIP lane and other things. So I can completely understand that we had to fill 630 vacancies. We had 2 weeks to do it, right? But the coordinators did extraordinarily well to get people over the line. My agent Tony was just an absolute treasure. And actually, when I say that, I don't have any help per se, Tony has been an absolute treasure in helping me with my nomination and being there at the nomination meeting when I couldn't be there because I had business trips planned, obviously, because this all came so quickly. So on that front, the party and Anthony Glover, if he's watching this, bless his heart. But it's not like when like the Tories coached in hundreds of young Conservatives to Clacton last time, so as to make sure that Nigel didn't get over the line. It's not like I've got that going on. The actual kind of day-to-day campaigning of doing the online thing, and going to Bethnal Green, and canvassing people. That's something that I'm doing on my own, but I'm absolutely fine with that, and I've got no complaints. So that was the answer to the second part of your question. What was the first part of the question?
I think I've even got to remember what the first part was. So I think the first part is saying, Peter, have you had hustings? Are there hustings. Opportunities for you to speak?
Hustings, right. So the answer to that is no, not yet. I was interviewed on the Kazi Rahman Side by Side podcast last week before last. He's a Muslim business entrepreneur of the year, top guy. We had a fantastic chat, and he wasn't what I expected, and I certainly wasn't what he expected. It was fantastic time. We agreed on, I would pretty much say, almost everything. Almost everything. You couldn't get a bus ticket between he and I on all of the key policies. So I said on that podcast, which is very popular with his community and his followers. I said, Ms. Ali, if you're watching, debate me. Come on. Don't be scared. Anyway, that hasn't happened. And she's been, to me anyway, as invisible these last 2 or 3 weeks as she's been to her constituents for the last 5 years. That's her thing, right? That's one of the things that people say on doorsteps, and I put that in one of my campaign adverts this week, actually. The bits of feedback that you get on her when you're on the doorstep is she's very fond of a conference. She's silent on the big matters, and that speaks very much to the point I made earlier. One guy said, "Well, she's otherwise invisible." So I use that term. So I Haven't had a chance to do a hustings yet. However, I think I'm on a Sky TV Bangla channel on next Tuesday. I've certainly been invited. I hope that goes ahead. But separately, this weekend, I will be writing to all of my competitors and trying to get them to do a hustings. I bet none of them agree, or maybe Reggie, the Humanist Party candidate, who's the landlord of one of the pubs on the Bethnal Green Road, is a really, really nice guy. I bet he says yes, but Labour won't. She won't, because I think that she thinks she's won.
Well, it sounds like Reggie's pub off Bethnal Green Road would be a perfect venue for you to have a hustings, even if it's just between you and Reggie. And I say that in all seriousness, because then you give the opportunity for a discussion. You want to know what is going through people's minds, and then it means that you are available. When you talked about going on that gentleman's podcast, and you said that you were not what he expected, what do you think he was expecting? Why? Where was this sudden common ground that arrived, which sounds very good?
Well, because if you're possibly, and maybe I'm kind of generalizing here, and I can't say what his preconceived ideas were. I can only say, I mean, it's out there on the web now, and you can see both of us agreeing for about an hour and 40 minutes, and actually having a great time. I think he kind of expected, possibly, I don't know, like a St. George flag waving racist or otherwise rich businessman that's out of touch, or I don't know. But I don't think he was expecting someone from the working class family. I don't think he was expecting someone with the views on Israel, Gaza, tax and spend, immigration, because it seemed that we were together. I think we only really disagreed. I couldn't persuade him on Brexit, sadly, but I tried. But even with Brexit, he was magnanimous enough to say that he hadn't really heard an argument like mine for leaving, and that was great also.
What was your argument in regard to leaving? What did you say to him?
I said this: the EU is a Soviet. It is a dictatorship by cabal. It is a greater Germany. Germany took over mainland Europe back during the war, and it failed. It failed badly. I think their political class did it a different way. I think they did it through the strength of the Deutschmark, exchanging the high value Deutschmark for what is effectively a devalued Deutschmark, which is what the euro is. And you know what, I had a meeting the other day for one of my businesses with a Dutch guy, and these people will often say they'll do their research on me before we sit down, and it's on my Wikipedia page that I worked, on the Leave campaign, like locally here in Brentwood, and it's often the first thing that that comes up, and they're like, but why? Why did you do that? And I sit in. Where's your interest rate set? And he went, Frankfurt. Where's your currency printed? Where's it operated from? Frankfurt. I said, you're just a satellite of a greater Germany. And I think that the idea of it being a trade bloc with high walls that sees itself as scared and in competition with America and China, it builds those high walls. Well, what do those high walls do? Well, it stops people trading with Africa, for instance, right? What does that do? Well, it keeps the wealth spinning round inside the EU. It doesn't go to Africa. They do what poor, desperate people do: tear each other apart, and then get to the point where they all leave. And so we are reaping the whirlwind of the EU and its high kind of trade wars. Our country wasted, what was it, 43 years we were in that union. We wasted 43 years where we could have been trading with the Commonwealth. We could have been lifting the Commonwealth with trading, building factories in Commonwealth countries, sharing the wealth, turning North Africa into an enormous power station, which it could be very easily. They have sun and wind. If you've got sun, wind, then you build a desalination plant, and you've got just this fertile area with relatively cheaper labour and economies of people that you can lift. But we didn't do that. We sat behind the EU's high walls, and now we've got this exodus from North Africa and other places into the EU, and obviously they go through France, and they come here. Why? Because this is the best country in the world. That's why. Well, there's some benefits in there, but not so much. What there is here is a vast black economy that we don't like to talk about, and that's how we got here. But it doesn't have to be like that going forward. It really doesn't.
From your perspective, Peter, and there you are in this wonderful capital of our nation, which is London. And of course, we have other incredible cities up and down the rest of our country, because we're talking about the country as a whole. What is your perspective on what is happening on the rest of the country? Do you feel that London is sucking so much in? I don't want to put words in your mouth, and some of it, of course, is my observation as well. Do you think that it's taking too many resources in, where those resources need to be spread around the rest of the country? I mean, Boris Johnson used that phrase, levelling up, for argument's sake. If we look at our previous industrial revolution, our industrial past, etc., up north, during the Midlands, the fact that manufacturing, we need to be making things to create an economy. It's a long question. I'll say, how can we move from, it seems, this wealth distribution mindset we have to creating wealth again, to actually manufacturing things again?
Two parts to your question. The first bit about England being, or the UK being effectively four countries and a self-governing island, called the city, which attracts business and people. I think that one of the things that we should have done. I mean, Boris was often right on his rhetoric, wrong on lots of other things, mind. But I mean, we should have moved our ministries and aspects of the civil service. I know some of that was moved out to the regions, but very small bit, you know. But that, for a start, could be, you know, you could pick up. I mean, the government is a very large employer. Why wouldn't it be an employer in otherwise impoverished parts of our country? Why does it have to be kind of just all in buildings around Westminster? It's nonsense. So the government could spread the wealth. Indeed, you know, I'm very lucky. One of my mates, through complete coincidence, and not because I'm a political animal, particularly, you know, because I'm not a politician. I'm a business person that just stepped up, you know, because of what's going on. But one of my mates was made a lord, right? So my friend Brian Mackenzie is Lord Mackenzie of Framwellgate, and so, you know, I've been to the house a few times, not the green side, only the red side, to have a drink with him. And I know that, like, for instance, that they talked about, you know, when the House of Parliament needs to be rebuilt, and there's lots of kind of works going on there now. You know, I said, why don't they just, like, pick up the Lords, you know, and put that up in Durham, you know, for 5 years, you know, pick up the Commons and put that up in Manchester, you know, and he was like, you know, people have said that, and yes, it would make sense, but the thing is, they are London centric. There's this whole ecosystem there of journalists and civil servants, overpaid civil servants. You know, they don't want to move. So I mean, there was a chance for our politicians to do what the Football Association did for a period when Wembley was being rebuilt. They basically decamped to Wales. Great idea. You know, we could have done those things, and we didn't. So, yeah.
I actually think, in many ways, you're quite brave in saying that, because and what you've said in many ways is very selfless as well, because you're right. Those things do need to be moved out. That would really help, I think, the cohesion of our country. Peter, what would be quite good at this point? Where can people reach out to you? How can people get hold of you with their concerns as constituents? I know you're going around the constituency, but how can people get hold of you? Email, phone, etc. How would people do that?
The easiest, yeah, I mean, email. So you know, if you go to, if you can't remember Bethnal Green and Stepney at Reform UK, etc., don't worry about that. Just go to the Reform website, and then just navigate down to London, you know, and then you'll see Bethnal Green. So you can get me via the Reform website. Other than that, yeah, and possibly easier than that is to get me via the Bethnal Green and Stepney Facebook page. So I'm on that every day. You know, I'm posting something every day that's either angry old manish or hopefully witty. Today's post was about the Daily Mail journalists campaign. Do you know about that?
Go on. I don't think I'm aware of that.
We had a note round from the party saying, be careful. The Daily Mail have got journalists working by the hour to friend or otherwise get into Reform candidates' Facebooks and search back and find where they said something bad in 2018, and then it ends up in the paper. And sure enough, about a week after we had that note round, I think the candidate in Chelmsford, he made some comment in I think it's in 2018, saying that Richie Sunak's head should be put on a spike, right? And that was put out as, he must resign, and the party was, to its credit, it's like, look, we aren't politicians. This is how people joke with each other, right? Grow up, right? But that doesn't stop me and other candidates being friended by, lots of different people, and in my case, I've had a few guys, but lots of very, very attractive middle-aged women have supposedly wanted to be my friend recently. Fortunately, I have I think I've always been rather choosy on Facebook anyway, but I had my defenses up, and so typically I've just gone like no. But the post that I made to today on the Bethnal Green and Stepney Facebook site was about an answer. It was a copy of an answer that I gave to someone who I knew was a journalist, and I said, "Are you friending me because we've got something in common? Have we got any friends in common, any interest in common, or is it that you work for the Daily Mail? And if so, I can save you some time here." And so I said, I admit to being a fascist, Nazi, racist, coke snorting deviant. I hate Jews, Muslims, and people that drive Range Rovers equally. And here's a picture of me looking bonkers, so you don't have to find that as well. Right? I mean, it's all right. It's a humour. We shouldn't have to be doing this, right? The Daily Mail, honestly, is that how desperate the Tories are? Well, the answer to that is yes. We're on. What are we now? We're like 9 points ahead of them in the polls. Extraordinary times we're living in. Extraordinary.
It's very, and as you will quite rightly say, Peter, it's very easy for people to come out with slurs. That's why when you're referring to that podcast and you walk in the studio and someone discovers that the sort of picture of you is not what they had, and then you have this pleasant discussion, and that then goes for so many people. Peter, I just want to last sort of few minutes, I want to come back to this. When you say that people are angry with the Tories, right? Is there anything specifically we could go and say, have we actually done Brexit? Has Brexit been seen to have happened? Do we have control of our borders? We can argue, no, we don't right now. What actually are people really looking for? And when you say, yes, I want my country back, and you are describing two communities where you are, in one sense, in Bethnal Green and Stepney, and I'm like you, and you quite rightly laid out in 1882 when your family are coming over from Ireland. Like you, I'm very aware of the transit community of the East End over many years, and we also know historically when when the Queen Mother all those years ago, when they said, well, are you going to leave London because of a bomb hitting in Buckingham Palace? And she turns around, no, I won't be able to look the East End in the eye. We know what that area has suffered with the docks, bombing, etc., and also the changes of employment. But is there drilling down? What does I want my country back mean to one group? And of course, another group, there's an international issue going on where we're talking about the election of issues that are happening in this country. What are your thoughts?
Nigel said that this is the immigration election, and he's right. But I think the way that I characterized that when I was speaking to Kazi Rahman the other day was able to take the kind of heat out of it. Because when you see, not when we see, but when some people see the word immigration, it's almost like the subtext is like racist, right? And I explained to Kazi that, look, here's the thing. If your country has got social infrastructure, meaning houses, health service, social workers, doctors, nurses, if your country's got social infrastructure funded up to such that it can deal with 60 million people, but then there's 68 million or probably 70, right? It doesn't, so at that point, all your systems, all your housing, everything is stretched. It doesn't matter if the immigrant has got a brown face or a white face. It doesn't matter if the immigrant in question is a Catholic or Greek Orthodox or Muslim. None of it matters. It's nothing to do with color. It's nothing to do with religion at all. It's numbers, and it's clear that we've only got infrastructure for about social infrastructure for about 60 million, and we've got more than that. So what does that mean in practice? Well, it means that you can't get a doctor's appointment for 3 weeks. It means that you can't get seen in A&E. And I think, you know, if the immigration issue is, you know, is put more in those terms, it's like all the money that we've spent. What's our social infrastructure number? I'm guessing is 60, right? Whatever, it's not 68 and it's not 70, because then we'd be able to see our doctors. We'd even see policemen. What about that? You know? And so I think the, you know, when Nigel said this is the immigration election, he is right. I would probably caveat that with a much less snappy that it's the immigration where we are 6 to 10 million people overpopulated for our social infrastructure. That's the immigration.
And the other thing is that if people are coming over in boats over the channel and they end up in hotels that are costing us an absolute fortune, and the fact is being able to have we have to have a discussion about this. And as you quite rightly point out, when people then throw a racist slur around, they want to shut down this debate. I suppose to help you, if we think about it in context, our country fits into Texas in America 2.5, 2.75 times. They are a vast continent, and they have a population of 330 million. There are a lot of illegals coming over. That's another subject, but they have a population far more than that. and then we have a population of 68, 70 million, but we then fit into Texas that amount of times. That helps you, I think, put it in context. And what you're saying is the strain on our infrastructure. I don't think I have to talk to you about London traffic, do I, sir? Either. I mean, this is it's real. Peter, I'm also, just before we go, I'm also fascinated by your background in regard to the coal indices and what you set up. And I just wondered if you could briefly talk about that, because this raises other important issues out there and the fight going on, and there is, you know, the whole thing of the cost of living. So I just wondered, talk about your business experience and what you are bringing to the party.
So these days I've had a nice wonderful career, and these days I'm a energy expert, and the majority of my business, although I've got kind of little investments which kind of come through our family, and the majority of what I do is expert witness, so litigation support. So I help courts, typically in Asia Pacific, but often London, figure out what the fair settlement is on a dispute relating to cargo or cargoes of coal. How did I end up with such a strange job? Well, back in the day, I realised that there wasn't a sufficiently good enough coal benchmark, and this was during the time when electricity was being made competitive. I'm not sure it really is competitive, by the way. I think all that privatisation has done is ruin everything. But anyway, back when power stations were going to have to be competitive, then competition on the output side of the power station, without going into the energy nerd stuff, that kind of price volatility goes through to the other side of the power station. So gas prices were going to become more volatile, and there was a gas benchmark. I didn't think there was a sufficiently good coal benchmark. So to cut a long story short, and if anyone's interested in the story, Coal: My Part in Its Downfall is on Spotify, and it's free, which it's a cracking story, because it turned out to be the biggest thing I've ever done, or the biggest thing I ever will do. So I wound up coming up with a benchmark for coal, which at first no one was interested in at all. And then after a few months of pushing and deals happening here and there, it just went viral. And so I'm the guy that founded the number on which the international coal market is based. And there's about $500 million worth of business hanging off the kind of number that I invented. While I unfortunately I don't get half a cent for every deal that goes through off it. If it did, that would be nice, but it wasn't possible because of the structure of it. But what it did do was make me ever such a tiny little bit famous in that market, and what that's done is bring me to the attention of lots of lawyers, a few energy ministers, and so I built up a kind of practice around coal. And coming back to kind of energy policy, which I know you were kind of leaning into, coal, not a lot of people know this, but coal at the end of 2023, the coal market was bigger than it's ever been in world history, right? So those people that think that somehow, coal's dead now, Greta Thunberg killed it all, all that kind of stuff, it's not. What's happened is we and lots of Europe and of America have simply offshored our dirty manufacturing to China, and China and India are buying as much coal as they can get their hands on, and they are burning as much coal as they get their hands on. And as at the end of last year, the planet was burning more coal than it's ever done at any time. So it just gives you an idea. I think there's lots of people that would think like, in Europe, but coal's dead. Yeah, no, it isn't. It's massive. It's never been bigger. And the frustrating thing for us Brits is that we don't only have lots more oil in the North Sea. We don't only have lots more gas in the North Sea. We don't only have lots of gas that we can frack, out of onshore stuff. Our country's built on reserves, even now, of about 150 years, right? Treasure, as Richard Tice says, treasure below our feet, tons of it, and we won't frack, we won't dig coal. Labour even saying they won't issue any more oil and gas licenses. It's utter nonsense. It's complete hypocrisy, because they will do that in one breath, and then the other breath buy a MG from China that's an electric vehicle, right, that's made with coal power. The steel is made with coal. The battery and everything, that factory is coal power. Only somehow it's all right because they're burning it and we aren't. It's utter nonsense. Energy policy in our country has been an absolute disaster for decades, and that's why our there's no aluminium refineries in our country anymore. It's why the steel business has been strangled almost out of existence. It's just an absolute disaster.
Well, the other thing is, Peter, and I commend you for it, is you're bringing your wealth of experience, your life of experience, your business experience to this, and it's a really important debate, because this is affecting us. Otherwise, bluntly, so they all want us to freeze to death and rely on solar panels and wind farms. That is another discussion that I would love to have with you beyond this election, but I would really love to do that. Well, my prayer for you is that the biggest thing that you will do in life is to fulfill your dream of now and what you're doing, which is to win the constituency of Bethnal Green and Stepney on behalf of Reform UK.
I hope so. One of my kind of campaign posters kind of put me up against Ms. Ali, and comprehensive school versus Oxford. Only ever had proper jobs, never had a proper job, right? Campaign for fairness in publicly funded salaries. That's something else that I did, right? I had the idea to fix all taxpayer funded salaries at a fraction of the Prime Minister, right? How some idiot working in Essex County Council earns 300 grand a year when the Prime Minister only earns 170 is beyond me, right?
I
How Gary Lineker earns 1.3 million working effectively for the state is just, it's an outrage. It's an absolute outrage. While we have nurses who the Tories made the nurses pay for their own education, only pay them 36 grand or whatever it is when they're qualified, and then charge them to park their car outside.
I hear you, Peter, and you're absolutely right. And before I push any more buttons, and you fulfill this wonderful picture of being the angry young man, I am with you, and I thank you. And I'm going to play us out. I just want to thank you for your time because we're getting against that hour buffer. But Peter, I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for joining me for this discussion. Don't go away. Join me on the other side. I can shake hands through the screen and just say thank you very much for your time, sir.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Not at all. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.